The executive session of the Wayne Board of Education regular meeting of November 19th, 2020 was convened in the Media Center at Anthony Wayne Middle School, 201 Garside Avenue, Wayne, New Jersey. The statement of compliance setting forth time, date, and location was read in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, and roll call was taken. The meeting was recessed and is now being reconvened. Please rise for a flag salute and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Dr. Toback.
So good evening. The Board of Education meeting is being held at Anthony Wayne Middle School again due to the limited number of people that may assemble indoors. This in-person meeting is limited to the Board of Education members, some administrators, and our Board of Education attorney. However, the meeting is open to the public for viewing and public participation in the same manner as our other meetings using Zoom. This week is American Education Week, and this presents everyone with an opportunity to celebrate public education and honor individuals who are making a difference in ensuring that every student receives a quality education. Congratulations and a heartfelt thanks to every one of our district employees for all of your work during this challenging time. The community in Wayne is fortunate to have a great public school system. Many generations of Wayne residents will tell you that they moved to this community for the school system. We're proud to be a part of a very strong tradition of excellent public schools in this community, and this is something to truly celebrate. I have to do some required reporting this evening. In this case, it's the New Jersey Department of Education school self-assessment for determining grades under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. Okay, so this is a required report. All New Jersey public schools must complete an annual self-assessment to determine compliance under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. School scores must be presented annually at a public Board of Education meeting annually by October 31st. However, this year, the deadline is December 1st due to the ongoing COVID-19 adjustments at the Department of Education. Each school must evaluate performance in 8 core areas or elements, which include those listed below: HIV programs, approaches, or other initiatives. Secondly, training on the Board of Education and approved HIV policy. Third, other staff instruction and training programs. Fourth, curriculum and instruction on HIV and related information and skills. Fifth, HIV personnel. Sixth, school-level HIV incident reporting procedures. Seventh, HIV investigation procedures. And eighth, HIV reporting. This year, our district average was a grade of 76.21, which is a new 7-year high for the district. It continues our upward trend in assessing our response to HIV incidents. This progress is largely due to our hard work for our anti-bullying specialists, administrators, and teachers who take a proactive approach to supporting our students and actions to stop bullying. So it was a group effort across the district. The total possible score for the HIV report is 78. So we're at 76.21 out of 78. Specific school scores are as follows. Lafayette School reported a perfect score of 78. Fallon, Kennedy, Randall Carter, Tunis, and George Washington reported a score of 77. APT, Packanack, Ryerson, and Wayne Hills reported a 76. Pines Lake, Anthony Wayne, Scholar Colfax, and Wayne Valley reported scores of 75. For more information on how each school rated itself in each category and information on our revisions and improvements to No Place for Hate 2.0, please visit the district website. Thank you to all the counselors, administrators, again to our teachers who work tirelessly to combat bullying and to ensure our schools are a safe, welcoming, and positive environment for all of our students. An interesting development with the Department of Education. So for many weeks, there has been a dispute between superintendents and the New Jersey Department of Education. Now that colder weather is here, I am happy to report that common sense has prevailed when it comes to meeting the 180-day requirement. Up until recently, if the school district was operating under the hybrid instructional model as we are, then any weather-related closure could not count towards the 180-day requirement. Even if it was a virtual day, it would not count as a school day. Now we have the option of including those days of remote instruction towards the required 180 days of schools when even if remote instruction is being delivered on an inclement weather day. However, there is one requirement, and that is that if there are power outages or Wi-Fi outages, then the community would not be able to count that as a day. So you can, on an inclement weather day, have a virtual school day and have that count towards your 180-day requirement. But in the event of a power outage or a widespread power outage or the loss of Wi-Fi across the community, that would be the only day that would not be able to count. So that's a good development for the district, and it allows us flexibility in the event of inclement weather. We can still go on with the school day. For elementary school news, I'd like to just report that Ryerson Elementary School is in the third year of implementing the Leader in Me program. Leader in Me is a whole school improvement model that uses teaching practices to promote social and emotional learning for all of our students in grades K to 5. The goal for 2021 at Ryerson is to reach every student every day by having them attend virtually or in person and be engaged in school. Through the program, Ryerson school staff is able to support leadership, culture, and academics in a positive way for the entire student body, and they inspire every child to find their genius and take on a leadership role in some way. The Early Childhood Center is kicking off their No Place for Hate initiative, spearheaded by Gina Savatieri, school social worker. With the signing of the preschool pledge for kindness, the whole school initiative will bring the Preakness Early Childhood Center community together as they address our district and school diversity, equity, and inclusion goal. Rollout begins tomorrow, and pledges will be collected virtually from students, families, and staff via the online learning tool Seesaw. Lafayette Elementary is continuing some longstanding traditions as they maintain a sense of community during hybrid instruction. The socially distanced food drive has been organized, and the school is planning for additional collections to provide support for those in need during the holiday season. Over the course of the past few weeks, students in 3rd through 5th grade at Randall Carter learned about and experienced walking meditation. The purpose of walking meditation is to offer students an opportunity to learn what it means to be fully focused and mindful, and to experience the benefits of feeling serene, balanced, and more grounded with nature. Students took socially distanced walks outside and had the opportunity to take an appreciated mask break. They were instructed to follow a very slow and deliberate walking pace while placing their focus on their shoes and the people in front of them, and they were asked to notice what natural sounds they heard during their meditation experience. The other thing I'd like to report on tonight is that there were changes to the high school winter athletic season. So the NJSA recently had to make some difficult decisions when it comes to the winter sports season due to the increase in COVID cases and the problem with carrying out high-risk sports during the pandemic. As a result, the changes for high school winter sports teams are as follows. Ice hockey. Practice may begin on December 14th. Basketball, fencing, and bowling will start practice on January 11th. Swimming, winter track and field start on February 1st. And gymnastics, volleyball, and wrestling are scheduled to start on March 1st. So a very late start for some of our winter sports. With the HIV report, I'd just like to mention that during the reporting period, there were 2 incidents reported as HIV. After a thorough investigation, one of the reported incidents was found to be an actual case of HIV. Okay, so the next part of our discussion is the reopening of schools, phase 2. So Mr. Bouchard, I was wondering if you could pull up that presentation, the phase 2 presentation, so we can get a discussion going about that. Okay, Mr. Bouchard, if you can go to the next page. Okay. So members of the public who are viewing this meeting, I'd like to just go over, basically there's a plan to move our school district to phase 2 in our return to school model for this year. So for those of you who have not been following along, just a quick review that there are basically 3 actions that are under consideration for phase 2. The first action is consideration of higher risk time periods. So in other words, the holidays are a time when people gather. We've heard many warnings from public health officials about the possible spread of COVID during the holidays. So the action includes all virtual instruction 1 week after Thanksgiving and 2 weeks after the New Year. The second action includes virtual Wednesdays. So the second phase calls for the elimination of virtual Wednesdays at all grade levels. The third main action is the merging of high school cohorts. In other words, move from 3 cohorts to 2 cohorts. So we know the class sizes at the high school or both high schools are already small, and combining cohorts would not lead to an inability to maintain social distance. So that was a discussion at our last board meeting. Last board meeting was a public work session. The agenda item was moved forward for a vote tonight. And so you'll find it is on section K of the agenda. So Mr. Bouchard, if we can move ahead, some things have changed since last time. One of the things that has changed is the COVID-19 activity level report. So as far as school planning goes, the district, every school district uses these maps that pop up on a weekly basis from the state of New Jersey. And so what we see now is something that there's a progression. So in early October, you could see that Passaic, well, this is current. So you could see that our county, Passaic County, is currently listed as a high risk area, okay? In October, we were at moderate risk. And then earlier in October, all the way back to the start of the year, we were at low risk. So now we've made our way on this continuum to the point where we are high risk. Okay? So that is a development that just happened today. If we could, please move on to the next slide. Okay, so basically this is just, this is really for the presentation once it's posted. If anyone would like to know more about the statistics that are on the prior page, there's basically a bunch of footnotes there. So on the next page, you can see the progression, right? So low risk, moderate risk, we've been operating and we've been following all the guidance from the Department of Health at the state level, at our local level. And we've been working very hard to maintain our schools, even though under some difficult circumstances. There's a lot of things that have happened. But right now, like I said, we're at high risk. And so based on the Department of Health guidelines, you can see there are a number of considerations that we have to recognize. There's some things we need to do. We've been in contact with the Department of Health here in Wayne today to talk a little bit more about the specifics, about what it is that we might need to do differently now that we are a high risk area. But there's some other planning that needs to take place, and there's some other things that we need to look at, because ultimately in Wayne, our numbers are also increasing in our schools. And I'll explain why there's a lot of other ripple effects when we get to our numbers. So if we can go to the next slide. Okay. So these are our numbers, and you can see the dates attached to them. And the next page, you don't need to pull it up yet, but the next page is our prior week, okay? And so what you'll see basically is the numbers of students and staff members who are either positive, tested positive, or who are quarantining during this time period, okay? So you can see the numbers, and you can see those numbers are definitely getting large. The number of students quarantining at 242. The fact that we have 45 positive student results, the fact that we have 39 staff members quarantining and 11 staff members that are positive, those numbers are way up even from a month ago or even from last week. If you go to the next slide, okay, you can see there's a significant increase in the number of students quarantining, about 80. You can see there's another 10 staff members that are quarantining. You can see that the staff positives are at 8. And you can see the student positives are at 26. So these numbers keep going up, and they've been going up by quite a bit. So the one thing I'm going to talk about is some of the issues that we're experiencing with staffing. So as you can see now, we're at, if you can go to the prior slide, Mr. Bouchard, okay, at 39 staff members quarantining. Okay, now those numbers change every day a little bit because ultimately some staff members come back. So that number is probably a little bit different than what it is now, but the point is that even when you get to that level, even if you have 20 or 30 staff members who are quarantining, the district already has approximately 60 staff members now that already have accommodations. So they are accommodated for various reasons, and they do not necessarily have to be in school, but there has to be a substitute in the classroom for hybrid instruction. So you have to have a sub for all those situations. Plus, if you have 39, say 40, you're talking about 100 people that have to be covered on any given day. And yes, we have a large school district, but 100 substitute situations is a lot. Plus, you also have to consider the day-to-day situations where you have people who miss work for various reasons, people who are sick for other reasons, not COVID, people who have medical appointments, other things that they're doing. So all of our staff members have rights to various days, and so that's all added on top of this situation. Mr. Bouchard, if you could move on to the next slide. Okay. So at the last board meeting, we heard from some of our board members and also from the community, there was a very strong desire to merge our high school cohorts, because the fact of the matter is we do have small classes at the high school at this point. There are many classes that really have just 2 students, 3 students. So there's some very small numbers out there. And so the idea is, well, if we merged cohorts, there was great hope that ultimately merging cohorts would lead to a little more normalcy for our high school students. It would lead to a little bit of a better opportunity for social interaction and some of the things that the students are really missing this year. And so in response to all that, what we decided to do was we initiated a survey of our high school parents. And the whole idea was to determine if parents were interested in having their child, if we merge cohorts, would that lead to large numbers of students returning to the high school for hybrid instruction? What would happen? What would the parent, how would the parents respond? And so that was the survey, and you could see that you know, we got some results that we didn't really expect. So one of the things we did expect was the fact that the vast majority of parents decided to stay put. And we were happy to see that there was an interest of 58 parents between both high schools. They would like to have their child return from full remote to hybrid if we merged cohorts, okay? But what you can also see is there's a significant number of parents who decided that if we merged, they would, or at least they responded, if we merged, they would switch from hybrid to full remote. You can see that's 147 students that would be leaving the district, okay? So not leaving the district, I shouldn't say that. They would be switching from hybrid to full remote, okay? So not leaving the district, but going to remote. So that was something we did not expect. And that was something that was unanticipated in our planning, but that's where we are. And you know, we also have an unfortunate trend over the past few months where every week we have been losing high school students for different reasons. Originally, our principals reported that a lot of times students felt that the opportunities that they were looking for in terms of you know, having some time with their friends, being able to socialize at the high school level just wasn't happening. And so in some cases, students left and decided to go remote. As of late, the primary reason that parents have been giving to both of our principals is that they're concerned about the spread of COVID, and they just decided they feel a little safer by keeping their children home. So they decided to go from hybrid to remote. And so that's, I'm sure that's represented with these numbers here as well, okay? Mr. Bouchard, if you can go to the next page, please. Okay. So go back to the unfilled sub situations, okay? So you can see one of the things that the district is facing is we have a shortage of subs. And you can see we started the year where our fill rates were about 33%, which is not great, but it was a lot better than what it was in October, where we can only get a substitute fill rate of 22%. That means at about 4 out of 5 openings that we had were not filled by per diem subs. We have other situations, we have permanent subs, we have class coverages, we have different ways that we have been able to cover those classes with the teachers within the school, with substitutes, with permanent subs, with other ways we can cover them. But the fact is there's a void that we have. Normally those numbers are quite a bit higher. And you can see basically that we have sub hours for September and of 2019 to November of 2019. And then you can see the difference that we have for September to November of 2020. Significant number in you have 15,756 sub hours versus only 3,110. You have non-working approved subs. So what does that mean? What is a non-working approved sub? That means that you have right now, you have 160 substitutes that have been approved to work by the Board of Ed, but are, for whatever reason, unwilling to come in to work. So in other words, they've been assigned, they've been asked to come in to be a sub. They're just not coming in. Last year, we only had 59. So we also have fewer subs that, even though they're approved, are not coming in. Adding to this is that we have the whole issue of COVID is touching a variety of people in a variety of ways. And so in some cases, it's people that are contracting the virus. In other cases, it's people who have family members who are contracting or who are quarantined because of close contact. We had a situation at Wayne Valley today where there's a number of people that were close contact of an individual that tested positive over the past few days. And so this is an everyday event in the district. There are different situations that we come across where there's discussions about close contact and who should quarantine, which explains why the number of students and staff members quarantining is getting so high. And we also have an uptick in 504 requests. So in other words, I explained previously that we had a number of staff members that are being accommodated. Now we have additional staff members that have concerns because of the change in CDC guidance as it pertains to those who are pregnant. So that is another issue. So those numbers of accommodations are moving from the mid 50 range to the 60s to the low 60s. And so I'm sure, like I said, those numbers will continue to increase in the coming weeks. If we can go to the next slide. So based on where we stand right now, okay, what the administration is recommending to the board is a revision of the agenda item that we have, okay? So we are continuing our recommendation to maintain a virtual instructional program after Thanksgiving for 1 week, and then after the new year, 2 weeks. So that is already on the attachment. We're recommending that at this point, the elimination of the virtual Wednesday is the timing for that is not good based on the conditions that exist right now. So we're recommending that we hold that until January to see where we are in a few weeks. We know that there's a lot that will probably happen in the next few weeks. And we're also recommending that we move ahead with merging of cohorts, but we start that on January 19th when we return after the weeks of virtual instruction after the new year. The other thing I'd like to talk to the board about is, when this pandemic broke out and then we had our return to school plan, everyone worked very hard. We read all kinds of literature. We were all up to speed on some of the things that, that might happen, some of the things that we might be seeing. And we plan for that. We have a cohort model, and that allows for school and education to go on in the event that there's exposures and things like that. But we expect to see that more often, where we'll have cohorts of students that will be out of school. We also think that the combination of staffing problems that we have now, the lack of substitutes, the increase in the number of people that are being quarantined, we're going to have a very difficult time making sure that our schools are open safely. I mean, schools are safe and our schools remain safe. And, a lot of people say this, and it's true. I believe that ultimately the safest place for students to be is in school, right? But that changes when schools are not adequately staffed. And so that's what we're facing right now, a situation where we really are struggling to adequately staff our schools. And we're also looking at some other realities that might be coming up is because of the staffing situation, lost instructional opportunities. And so by that, I mean some of the situations we are experiencing now, in particular at our high schools, is that ultimately we today at Wayne Valley and also at Wayne Hills, during this week, we've had situations where we've had up to 12 teachers that were uncovered. So we were short 12 subs, for example, at Wayne Valley today, okay? So that situation, and when you multiply that out, each staff member has 5 classes. So 12 times 5 is 60 classes that we didn't have a substitute for that. And there was no way for the instruction to continue. So what happens is we merge those groups of students, depending on the period, in larger areas like the auditorium or in a cafeteria, whatever space happens to be available where we can socially distance, have our students be socially distanced where they can continue their work. But it is obviously nowhere near the educational opportunity that we want to provide our students. And like I said, this is something that will probably continue to evolve as a situation. We just don't have enough people for a classroom. So we are holding our own. And I won't say that that's the case at every school. That's certainly not the case. Our elementary schools, they seem to be doing okay right now. At least they're not in the situation that the high schools are when it comes to substitutes and covering some of the vacant or the absences from staff members, which is not to, it's not to say or pass judgment of anything. Just the fact is that we just don't have many subs. And even with a system of permanent subs, that is a huge bonus for the district. And that was something that was a very important thing for the district to do, to have these permanent subs. Even with those additional permanent subs across the district, we're still really having a tough time with that. So I think that concludes this part of the presentation. Mrs. Reichman, do you have anything that you would like to add to the discussion?
Not at this time. I think you covered it. If there's questions that come in, I may be able to assist.
Okay. Ready. So, Mr. Bouchard, is there another page? Okay. I don't think there is. I think that's it.
Okay. Are you willing to open this up to discussion now?
Sure, if the board would like to. I mean, ultimately, it's an agenda item. It's an important agenda item. It's up for a vote. And so I think that it would be appropriate for the board to weigh in and make a determination about how you'd like to proceed.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Toback based on the current recommendation? Then Mrs. Kumar.
Okay, so the current recommendations as they stand with our numbers, I feel comfortable with. But just as we're looking at the sub recommendations, as you were looking at the data that we had seen, what do we have a recommendation as to what might happen with the sub situation right now, or are we just kind of waiting to see as far as when we may have to close schools based upon not having staff, or do we not have an answer for that yet?
So the answer is we do have a general idea. Like I said, one of the things that early in the discussion about returning to school is what happens if you don't have enough subs. And so we have an acceptable situation in some of our schools, but what that would lead to, it would lead to unexpected school closings. Like if we had a snow day, it would be the equivalent of that. We would have to just call that morning. And I know our assistant principals are in very early, in many cases before 6 a.m. working on these schedules because there's so much involved right now. So at that point, they might put up the red flag and say, hey, we can't do it. We have so many classes that are uncovered. So it would be a sort of an unexpected school closure, much like a weather closure or something like that. That's where we would probably wind up going. And like I said, it might affect some schools, not others. At this point, we're still able to keep going and we're still able to move ahead for many of our students. But in some cases, like I said, we might end up in that situation. We're not there yet, but the numbers, as they keep moving in the wrong direction, we may be there within the next few weeks.
Mrs. Shar.
So I just wanted to say that this is going to be difficult because it's put into one vote. And I partially agree with some of the plan. Like, I don't want to take the Wednesdays away. I think that the teachers and the staff deserve the Wellness Wednesdays. However, I'm going to go back to the cohort combining. Here's my problem. We put it out to the people. Overwhelmingly, the people want the cohorts combined. Okay. Even though there are people that are saying that they're going to leave the schools if the cohorts combined, it actually almost makes it easier for us because now we would have less students in the building. So now you're taking less students in the building. So now those kids that were upset that they only had 2 kids in a class might end up in having one kid in a class. So we're in the same predicament, if not worse. As far as the contract, our numbers have gone up in Wayne. However, there are a lot of factors that play into that. And as far as the contact tracing goes, we have not had contact tracing that has said that these numbers increasing, even with the students, is from the school. So that says a lot too. Another thing is that the sports are still happening. We're still okay with sports. They're happening. Congratulations to a lot of the teams. They're making states and everything. These are kids from cohort A, B, and C, all mixed together without a mask, without being told what direction to walk. And I just want to give the board an example. So after doing some of my own research, it turns out that cohort A, and I'm going to go from the end date, the last day they go to school, to the first day that they go to school. So I'm missing a few days in there. Cohort A, the last time they were in school was October 30th. They are not going back again until December 7th. That's 5 weeks, almost 6. Cohort B, the last day they have seen school is November 19th, today. They will not be back again until December 14th, which is 4 weeks, almost 5 weeks. Now wait for cohort C, because this one's the best. Cohort C, assuming they get in tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, and nothing stops us, the last day of school they will see is November 24th. The next day of school that they will see is, assuming we start with cohort C when we come back, is January 19th. That is 8 weeks that these kids have not seen school. 8 weeks. How does a kid learn? 8 weeks not in school, not seeing a teacher, not interfacing with other kids. I get it. I get it. We're having numbers jump. I still do not see how combining the cohorts at this time, so at least each cohort would have more time in school, and cohort C would actually see the building some point in December. I'm begging of the board again to please think about this. 8 weeks out of school, 6 weeks out of school, 5 weeks out of school. That is crazy. And remember, they're all, or not all, I take that back. Most of these kids, a lot of these kids are on fields with no masks together. They're on buses together. There's a lot of stuff that goes into play here. The contact tracing is not from our schools. So I beg of you to please consider that when you're making your vote. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mrs. Albanese?
I do have a question. First of all, thank you again to the administration. Thank you to everyone that we've heard from, whether you're staff members, teachers. We've heard from the leadership for the administrators union. We hear you. We read what you send to us. We take everything into consideration. That said, I do have a question, and maybe we don't have the answer, but when we look at the thought exchange and we see the parents, I assume, who are answering for their students, that they would withdraw back to virtual from the hybrid model. Did we ask the question, are you withdrawing from the hybrid model regardless of the cohort combining? Or was it, if we combine cohorts, will you withdraw? Because my question is, do we have students who will be withdrawing regardless? What we do in November, what we do January 19th, do we have students who are saying, or parents who are saying for their students that I'm withdrawing? Because that makes a difference in looking at, right now it appears from the thought exchange that if we go forward with combining the cohorts, we will actually have less students receiving in-person instruction. Is it because of the combining of the cohort, or are parents simply taking the opportunity to say, I'm withdrawing my child regardless of what you do, because I have concerns about the virus and the spread of the virus and the uptick in numbers? So I don't know if we asked the question in a broken down method because we haven't seen the questions. I would be interested if we have an answer for that. Thank you.
So I believe the question that was asked was a very generic question. Basically, the idea is that the district is looking to move ahead with merging cohorts. We need to know what your plans are. If the cohorts are merged, then what are your plans? Now, to Mrs. Albanise's point, I have no doubt that because we have this every week, we have a number of students that are going to, their parents are making the decision that they're gonna leave hybrid instruction and go virtual. And so there's no doubt there's a pattern of that happening over many, many weeks. So now we're in a situation where I'm sure that the survey that we completed captured some of that. I have no doubt that there was a certain number of people who said, well, yeah, I was gonna, now that you asked me, I'm gonna have my child go virtual, but I was gonna do that anyway. So I have no doubt that there are some numbers like that, but we didn't break it down in that way. Again, that part was unexpected with the number of people that we have leaving. So we didn't really, we probably expected to see the other part, those other numbers, we expected them to be larger numbers. We expected to see more people wanting to return for hybrid instruction. And so we did get 58 between both high schools, and that's a good thing. But the net effect is we're losing somewhere around 90 students, I believe, something like that in some. So, I mean, Mrs. Sheeran, she does make a very good point, and I do understand that it is very difficult, and it has been a very hard time for many of our high school students. But I also encourage the board to look at the chart from the Department of Health. When you're right now at this moment, the only thing I'm saying is the timing. The timing is definitely an issue. We'd love to merge the cohorts, and it would be a wonderful thing to be able to do that now, because I know that would help many parents, that would help many students, and we just think the timing is bad timing. The fact that we're a high risk area, and the fact that the Department of Health is they have as their guidance to really that we should be talking about going fully remote once you become a high risk area. That's the guidance from our Department of Health. So that would be, merging cohorts at a time. And then you also have Dr. Goldberg's advice in the background. He said if we do become a high risk area, then any action we take to merge cohorts, we should exercise extreme caution. And so I just think, like I said, there's some risk involved, and I agree. Like I said, we have some small numbers, but as always, your question is a good question, and we don't have an exact answer. I'm sure, based on the prior history that we've seen over the past few weeks, what you're saying is valid. That not everybody is opting to have their child go remote strictly because of the merge.
So just to follow up, would it be safe to assume that whether we merge cohorts in a few weeks, we merge cohorts starting January 19th, it should be something that we're able to do, because based on the thought exchange, we expect that there would be no problem merging the 3 cohorts into 2. Based on the numbers that we see, we would not have any social distancing issue. So whether it happens November 30th or it happens January 19th, again, barring many, many other factors that could come into play, regardless of the time that we do it, we do think we would be able to do it.
Do we think we would be able to do it? We know we would be able to do it now. We know we could do it last week if we needed to. I mean, there's certainly the capacity to do it. The question that we have now and the question that we'll have in January is, should we?
Right.
Based on what happens. Like I said, we are in a continuum, and like I said, we started the year, we were low risk, went to moderate risk, now we're high risk, and you can see the next step in the progression, if we get there, is very high risk. And then in that situation, the guidance is to shut schools down. So it's hard to say what'll happen. I mean, as I've said in prior meetings, a few weeks, a month is almost like an eternity when you're talking about this pandemic. So many things change. The situation is so fluid, and it's really hard to say what's going to happen.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mrs. Reichman? Oh, did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
I just wanted to share, as a follow-up to Ms. Albany's question, I did have an opportunity to speak with a number of parents who requested a call after completing the survey, because they did share that question. So it was mixed. There were a number of parents who said to me, that their children counted out the number of days with the remote weeks and seeing that they would not be in school many days over the month of December, which Mrs. Scher commented, they asked their parents, can I go remote? However, I'll return in January or I'll return in February. Then there were parents who said, I'm starting to feel differently because of the uptick and I have increased concerns. So at this time, we'd like to go remote, but I don't intend to do that for a long time. And I think the thing to consider is we can safely make the switch to 2 cohorts. I guess the bigger question is, come January, if we have a large number that then requests to return for February, then will we be able to safely distance in the classrooms? That we won't know, because I do believe as more kids come back, more and more probably will follow suit. So maintaining social distancing right now, yes. Long term, that's a concern, again, that we'd have to address. And, we talked about additional staffing, but that's an even greater concern. I mean, so many of these things are just things we can't predict or forecast right now.
Mr. Pavlak?
Thank you. The decisions here, there's so many factors involved. I am. I'm unmuted.
You're good.
Yeah. There's so many factors involved here. Believe me, I'm fully in favor of returning the cohorts or moving the cohorts to 2. There's concerns though. One, we have our advice from our doctor, our specialist, and what his concerns are. I look at the number of days that if we were to implement this coming back from Thanksgiving, there's 10 days of school. That doesn't mean that the students are going to be there for 10 days, 10 instructional days. One cohort's going to be there shorter than the other, just because of the way the calendar falls. I know that our numbers in Wayne are good. I know our numbers in Wayne have begun to drop, which is a good thing. The other concern is what I've heard from a few people that I know whose children are coming home from college. They're coming home from school and they're home a day or two, and all of a sudden the roommate's now positive, who they were with a couple days ago. The girlfriend, the boyfriend, whoever are positive. The parents of the children are positive. So that's a concern to me. While you're not going to see that in the numbers today, that may be in the numbers a week from now. I've spoke to people who are working in hospitals, and they have told me the same thing one of the parents said in the last meeting. It's not as crazy as it was. Is it great? Not so, but could we be in a worse place? Yes, we can. We could be where the Midwest is right now, what we saw back early on. When looking at the number of days that we're talking about here, I have a concern about jumping into this for 9 or 10 days. And most, as I said before, most students aren't going to be in the building for 9 or 10 days. I think the move to combine the cohorts in January, I'm in favor of that. I was not in favor of it today till I started hearing the numbers on the staffing, and also talking to some of the students in the high school who said, you know what, no teacher, I don't even know why I'm here. So I think at this point, in going along with our doctor, our specialist is telling us, looking at the minimal number of days. And I don't mean to downplay that. Every day is important to every student in school. But we're in the middle of a pandemic here still. And I think for the 9 days or 10 days that we're looking at here, I think it is in our best interest to come back on January 19th, combine the cohorts. We'll see where the numbers we are at that point. We'll see the position we're in. Hey, if the numbers that we're seeing in Wayne now continue the way they are, in January, we're going to have no problems. So that's just my feelings on the subject. Thank you.
Did you have your hand up, Mrs. Kumar?
Yeah, I did. But Dr. Toback pretty much said what I was going to say in terms of our high risk situation that we're in. So I'm good.
My question is, if you had mentioned that the Department of Health said that we should go remote, I don't know if we're referring to the Wayne Department of Health or the County Department of Health, but if that's what they're recommending and that's the safest thing, why are we discussing any of this? Why are we not going remote? I don't understand. You're on mute.
Yeah, the answer is because the direction of the board has always been to try to maintain in-person instruction as much as possible. And so that's really what we've been trying to do. You know, to go virtual, I mean, quite honestly, there are advantages. You have a full day of instruction. And so you have a full day of instruction, you know, the substitute situations, all these other things, some of that goes away for the time being. And a lot of other school districts have moved ahead with plans. You know, there's a lot of districts now that have gone remote. We've been doing what we can to maintain opportunities for students. We also consider the special needs population. We know that the services and the IEP that each student has is a very important thing. We want to make sure that we fulfill those requirements. So that's why.
Okay, because it's just confusing to me that on one hand, we're saying the high school can't have 8 kids in a class, but the elementaries can and the middle schools can. We're not okay with that. And we're going by what's recommended to us. And then on the other hand, we're not going by what's recommended to us. So I'm very confused at this point. If it's not safe, then close the schools down. If it's safe, then you can have 8 kids in a class. That seems common sense to me.
I don't think that there's necessarily a double standard. I think it's really the other factor you're not accounting for is the parental will part, right? So the bottom line is that parents are able to make decisions about their children and whether they're going to be attending hybrid or not. So that's the other part about the high school part. It's not that we're making those determinations, it's parents making those determinations about how they feel about whether it's safe or not.
Well, we did hear them speak and they said that they wanted 2 cohorts. So we're not following what they're asking for. I'm not looking to argue this with you.
Yeah.
I'm confused because
Well, we heard some of the parents speak. We heard there's a lot of other parents that responded in the survey.
And maybe a copy of the form that was sent out should be sent to the board members, just so because I actually filled out the form that Miss Albany's, and it asked for your name, your child's name, their grade, the high school they go to, and if we go to 2 cohorts, what are you choosing? And it was like a yes or no. It was confusing. So maybe in the future we do send our forms to some of the board members to look at if there's going to be questions about it.
Well, usually as far as we reported the numbers and the form, as you said, it is the purpose of it was to determine enrollment, which is what we were talking about a little bit at our last board meeting. What impact will this have on enrollment? And will we see a surge of students coming back? And if so, do we need to do anything with regard to staffing? The answer would be yes. So we really did need to know that before we moved ahead. So we did the survey and it was 4 simple questions. So, but certainly the board can see results. You know, if you want to see more, but it's pretty simple. I don't think anyone would be confused by it. And I don't think that, you know, as far as the parents go, there's very specific questions because again, it was about enrollment, not about anything else other than trying to determine what parents would do in the event that the cohorts were merged.
Okay. Ms. Putup?
I definitely see the wisdom in waiting to implement phase 2 because of the conditions that we find ourselves in our geographic area. I can't quite wrap my head around the fact that we're going to kick the can down the road as far as combining the cohorts. I think if we're going to combine the cohorts, we should do it right after Thanksgiving and give those students who want to be in the classroom at their high schools an opportunity to do so as much as possible before we have to take another look at it in January. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mrs. Kumar?
Okay. Hi. So as I was looking at over the past few hours since we got the high risk recommendations from the New Jersey Department of Health, that was actually in the slideshow that was just on the screen. Part of it was to strongly consider going remote, and that's based upon a few things. And one of the things that it has to do with is transmission within the school. And as we've seen, it seems like the school is the safer place to be in terms of transmission between people. Again, the students are 6 feet apart, their masks, you know, we have a good setup in place, it seems, as far as transmission within the school. So for me, as you look at the New Jersey Department of Health guidelines under high risk, that's what's written there. The other thing that's mentioned is on the bottom, do not combine cohorts as a definite recommendation. So I'm just looking at the guidelines as it's written there. And as Mr. Pavlak said, we need to really take a look at how many days it is and consider where we should go from there, along with the fact, yeah, we have a lot of people traveling over the next few days, and I think it might get worse before it gets better. Unfortunately, people do plan on gathering, you know, in their homes. That is probably what's going to be happening over the holidays. I would like nothing more than to see students in school more time in person. But where we are right now, and based upon what the New Jersey Department of Health says within the guidelines that we just had in our slideshow that Dr. Tobak presented, it's really important for us to just take a look and take a step back. So that's why and how I made the decision that I made about going forward.
Okay. Is everyone finished asking questions about this? I think that students need to be in school. I'm a proponent of combining the cohorts, but based on the numbers and based on the fact that in a matter of one day, we went from medium risk to high risk, tells me that the likelihood of us getting to very high risk, which is definitely full remote, is looming, unfortunately. So it's a difficult decision, but with the number of stakeholders weighing in against it, it's becoming an easier decision to make, unfortunately. So we'll continue with the agenda, and it'll be up to us to vote at that time. But if the discussion is over, I'm going to continue. Dr. Burchard, do we have the student reps ready to be admitted to the call? Because I believe they're next. Okay. All right, Gina, we'll start with you. Welcome.
With a formidable 10-1 record, Valley's girls soccer team broke into NJ.com's top 20 in the state this week. The girls have won 10 games in a row and are currently the #1 seed in the NJSIAA Northwest Group 3. Special recognition is in order for junior goalie Astra McGraw, who is named Goalie of the Year for NorthJersey.com's Girls Soccer Midseason Awards. Congratulations to the Wayne Valley Marching Band on their 2020 New Jersey State Championship. The marching band defeated 10 other bands and won all captions for Best Music, Visual, Overall Effect, Percussion, and Color Guard. The girls' tennis team is having a breakout season on their way to a 2020 league championship. Valley's own first single county champ, Liza Kisaliva, has helped lead the team to a 9-2 record. Congratulations to Wayne Valley's cross-country teams. The boys won their Big North Conference division title and the girls placed second. Junior Ryan Pena won the boys division in an amazing 16 minutes and 4 seconds, and sophomore Devin Edmonds had a personal best of 22 minutes and 20 seconds to lead the girls. Miss Amy's marketing students have continued managing the Valley's One Instagram page on Student Live at Wayne Valley. They have continued student favorites like TikTok Tuesday and worked to feature voices from all around Wayne Valley, from students in the hallways to teachers with their children at home. The Smoke Signals school newspaper has completed its first issue under leadership of editors-in-chief Neha Chandra, Gina Fermi, and Nicole Giordino. The website has been fully remodeled, and the staff has worked tirelessly to publish a wide range of articles, particularly focusing on student perspectives and reflections on our new normal. Emphasis Valley's Literary Review Club has fully transitioned to an online format. Editors Katie Carvalho, Elena Oken, and Alex Reck have led the club in weekly meetings to share original student work and explore the nuances of language. Thank you.
Go ahead, Joseph. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting to unmute myself.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be in front of all of you today and report on behalf of Wayne Hills. And members of the Wayne Hills Math Club competed very well in their first virtual New Jersey Math League contest last month. Students have enjoyed participating in this competition for years at school and made a successful transition to the virtual format. Jacob Havlitz was our top scorer, solving all but one question correctly. The Patriots are currently in first place in Passaic County and listed as one of the high-scoring schools in the state. Wayne Hills looks to continue its streak of county titles in this competition as the year continues. Wayne Hills Structured Learning students on the Public Relations Committee recognized coaches for Coaches Appreciation Day on November 4th, 2020. Students created a bulletin board representing all sports teams and the Wayne Hills High School teachers and staff who are coaches. Coaches also received a poem, a treat, and some thank you letters in their mailboxes. The Wayne Hills Fall Drama is called the Halloween Trilogy and is being held on December 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It is a 3 classic short stories tale written as plays: The Cask of Amontillado by Poe, The Canterville Ghost by Wilde, and The Mark of the Beast by Kipling. The Cask of Amontillado is in the curriculum, and all 3 of these writers are prominent English lit writers. The plays are performed as a radio play. Prior to the invention of TV, people listened to the radio for all their information and communication needs. Voice actors in the radio studio acted out these parts, and people around the world listened for entertainment. A radio play imitates the production of old shows, showing the audience the voice actors as they stand at microphones and act out the parts. The radio play format will allow us to be on stage at mics safely and socially distanced. This fall, we had to put our traditional Spirit Week activities on hold. In the meantime, our student council is looking to provide supermarket gift cards for Wayne Hills High School families in need and the PTO food pantry. Each class has been given a community pass account to be used strictly for this gift card food drive. This is where the individual classes will work to sway as many donations their way. So when the food drive ends, their class will collect the most money, which will be added to the point totals for Spirit Week in the spring. The individual class accounts have been live since October 26th and run through November 20th. The Wayne Hills Cross Country State Sectionals were this past Saturday. The boys team placed 5th overall. Senior Patrick Scroble won an individual medal, finishing in 14th place. On the girls' side, Kyla Leathers also earned an individual medal, finishing in 14th place as well. Thank you.
The donations, Did one of you or both of you have donations to read?
We both have donations to
Okay.
read.
All right, well, you want to start, Joseph, and then Gina can wrap up?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
A donation was made from the Wayne Education Foundation, including one Hovercam Solo 8 document camera to Schuyler Colfax Middle School with a value of $381.59. In addition, the Wayne Education Foundation is donating high-interest, low-vocabulary nonfiction books for ESL students at John F. Kennedy Middle School with a value of $257.44. As well, the Columbia Bank Foundation Board has approved its charitable giving program in honor of the Atlantic Stewardship Bank Teeth program with a donation in the amount of $250 to Wayne Hills High School.
A donation of one percussion set and one keyboard with stand was donated to Tunis Dye Elementary School by Katie Hughes with a value of $400. The Wayne Education Foundation is donating a speaker and 2 over-the-ear headphones for the Zenden to Schuyler Colfax Middle School with a value of $277.06. And lastly, the Wayne Education Foundation is donating $900 to Student Support Services for professional development of the district's paraprofessionals.
Okay. Thank you both. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but do either of you care to weigh in on whether or not you want to combine cohorts at the high schools?
I guess I could speak to that.
Why don't you? We'd love to hear from a student.
So I think it makes sense that we wait until after winter break to combine the cohorts, just because with people seeing families and everything, transmission could increase, and we don't want to really spread that between students at our school. So I think that would make sense. And as a student, I know that I would probably feel more comfortable in school if we waited a little bit to combine the cohorts.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that we should wait until after the winter break, just because of the uncertainties with Thanksgiving break and students coming back from college. I've spoken with a lot of my peers and a lot of them don't feel safe, like even right now. And I think that just combining them wouldn't make all that much of a difference, and it'd be much better and alleviate a lot of fears if we wait until next year.
Thank you both. Much appreciated. It's nice to hear from the students themselves. And thank you both for coming to the meeting this evening. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Okay. On to revisions. Mr. Moffett.
We have one tonight, and it is on M, Human Resources, item number M, as in Mike 8, approval of appointment of district staff. Revised as follows: line number 3, Suzanne Aiello Art, we're going to revise from location 2.2 TD to 0.2 RY, which is down from 0.4 TD. And the related mission control number is RY, or RY, I should say, is 01-10-01/EDA, which is from budget account number 11-110-101-10-000. And that concludes the revision.
Thank you, Mr. Moffett. Okay.
Ms. Kazan,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just the other issue, and I don't know if you want to handle it here or at some other point before we vote, but we do have to talk about phase 2 of return to school and the modification, because as it stands, the board moved ahead the full phase 2 plan, which begins November 30th. That includes combining cohorts. That includes eliminating the virtual Wednesday. So we have to make a determination at some point before we vote, whether you'd like to do that now, about what you'd like to vote on.
Revise the agenda item when we
The
move the
attachment.
agenda.
Yeah.
So I assumed we would do that after the public portion, and that will be what we vote on. The recommendation that you've presented this evening will be the new agenda item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I did consider that. Okay, public portion. This portion of the meeting is open to citizens for comment on agenda items only. Residents are to state their names, addresses, and subject matter. Comments may be limited to 5 minutes per person. Members of the public are discouraged from speaking negatively about an employee or a student. The board bears no responsibility for comments made by the public. Comments regarding employees or students cannot be legally responded to by the board. Other comments may be responded to tonight or at subsequent meetings under old business. Can I get a mover? Mr. Giordano. Second, Mrs. Albanese. Okay. First caller, Dr. Bouchard. You're on.
My name is David Ginsburg from 2 Amy Way. A couple questions for you. First off, regarding being closed 2 weeks after Christmas and 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. I'm in support of that. But why is it 1 week after Thanksgiving versus 2 weeks? If we're identifying that as a high risk period for travel or people seeing their families, both Thanksgiving and Christmas, wouldn't conventional wisdom be to go virtual for after Thanksgiving for 2 weeks and after Christmas for 2 weeks versus 1 and 2? And then my other question is, and I think one of the board members brought it up, last week we were in the moderate risk. Now I guess we're in the high risk. We're not in the very high risk yet, but the way things are trending, by this time next week, we very well could be in the very high risk red area where we do have to go to all remote. My question is, what's the plan in place between now and December 3rd, which is the next scheduled Board of Ed meeting? If we do hit that high risk area, is there a plan in place in those, I guess it was 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, to be able to switch to all remote if we do hit that next week or a couple of days thereafter would be a question. So just the Thanksgiving, why is that not 2 weeks? Why is it only 1? And then what's the plan between this and the next Board of Ed meeting if we do go to the next red level? Thank you.
Thank you. Next. You're on.
Hi, my name is Audrey Patterson. I'm a first grade teacher at Pines Lake School. And the first thing I'd like to do is thank the Board of Ed administration and the union for working so nicely together and always having our best interests and the students' interests. I know that things change every day and how difficult this must be for you. But I also want to thank you for the Wellness Wednesdays. It has made me well. I work on Wednesdays. I have class. I look into projects for my class. I try to keep them interested. I am busy all day on Wednesday, but it gives me time to plan for the rest of the week. I also have a concern that touched me this week. I thought I was exposed to COVID, and of course I took the next day off. I received a phone call Tuesday night that I was exposed. I took off Wednesday. I could not get tested anywhere. The Wayne Township had no appointments available. I went to 4 other places. I made appointments. When I got there, they couldn't take me. I wonder, because we have to act because we don't know what tomorrow brings, could the Wayne schools have a way, a quick testing, a rapid testing for employees? Luckily, I'm fine. The person that thought they had COVID came back negative. And so my worry is over. But it was a huge worry, and we have nowhere to turn for testing. So I hope there's something that we could implement to help out the staff and families to make it a quicker return, because we all want to be at school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hi, Eileen D'Amico, 29 Manor Drive. As always, first and foremost, thank you to all of you. I know this is not fun and this is not easy, and everybody's been working hard trying to make good decisions and put plans together and backup plans and more backup plans. So, thank you for that work. I have to say though, and I've said it before, look, if the right thing to do from a science perspective and going with the science is to delay moving to phase 2 sort of in full. That seems to be what makes sense. That seems to be what the science is saying. But I feel like specifically with regard to the merging of the cohorts, we're kind of doing a little cherry picking here. And I have to say, I'm really, as I was last week with Ms. Shear on this, and Mrs. Putup, I think sort of relayed similar tonight. You know, the elementary and middle schools have been at 2 cohorts since the beginning, right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm getting the feedback that it seems in many classes, the average is maybe 6 to 8 kids, maybe as many as 10. I don't know if it's that many. But, you know, the point is, and the intention, it seems, is to keep that through, you know, through the rest of this calendar year during the times that the kids are in school, if you will. If that's okay for them based on the science, and it's okay to maintain that, why is it not okay to move to the same as of November 30th or whenever it would be for the high schools? And I did join late, so forgive me if I missed if the number of students would be drastically more than that in a high school class if we combine them. But if it's around the same and there's, you know, the ability to socially distance properly, why is it any different for the high school kids than the elementary and middle school kids? You know, and I heard what Mr. Pavlak said, and I understand, but elementary and middle school kids have college siblings coming home too. So, and there will still be kids in the school at the high school level. So if cohort B is in school that week, or A, or whichever, are they any more or less at risk than cohort A and a part of B? It just doesn't make sense. So I do feel like we're doing a little cherry picking. If the science says it's not safe, then much to my dismay, we'd go all virtual. If it's safe for the elementary and middle school kids, then it really should be safe for the high school students too, to combine those cohorts. And if parents and the kids aren't comfortable, they still have the option to stay home and stay virtual and learn virtually through the end of the calendar year. But for those of us who really have a need, and our students who have a need to be in school, even if it's for the big 5 days or 6 days or whatever it ends up being between now and winter break, if it can safely be done, it just doesn't seem to make sense from the discussion you guys had just a few minutes ago to not do it. Again, just based on the fact that we're letting the middle school and elementary schools do it. So why are the high schools any different? Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hi, Jenny Franklin, 21 Keelana Drive. Sometime how I always manage to follow Eileen D'Amico. First of all, to speak to Mrs. Kumar's point about the do not reduce the cohorts. I don't think that there's any other districts in our area that I have heard of that have 3 cohorts at the high school level. Everything that I've ever heard of has 2 cohorts. So I could understand that that would be the guidance to not reduce them, because then it would be everyone in school. My concern too is that, you know, we told the kids that they made mistakes on Halloween and they had parties and the cases went up, and they did, and you're right, and they did make mistakes, and that if they play by the rules and they do the right thing, that they'll get to stay in school. And then this map comes today and shows us all in this red area, and we're thrown in with Clifton and West Milford and Passaic and Patterson. I mean, if we're talking about high risk, are we talking about Wayne? Are we talking about what we're doing to try and take care and be, you know, careful with our kids? Or are we talking about the whole state? Because we're never going to win that. And it's hard to tell your kids that if you do the right thing, this is what's going to happen, and then maybe that's not what's going to happen. And that doesn't seem too fair. I would definitely be in favor of getting down to 2 cohorts. If we have to wait till January, we have to wait, but it needs to happen. The kids need to get back in school at the high school level. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Donna Reaver, First Vice President of the Wayne Education Association. The WEA would like to say that we appreciate Dr. Tobak's recommendation to go all virtual for the periods after Thanksgiving and winter break. These necessary precautions have eased some concerns among our members. We also hope that you consider making the 2.5 days leading up to Thanksgiving all virtual, as the gentleman suggested last week. Like Mr. Pavlak mentioned earlier, Many college students are already home, and we're learning of new cases each day among our students and staff. It's quite obvious that despite everyone's best efforts, this pandemic has once again engulfed our town, our county, and our state. The recommendations put forth tonight have the WEA's full support. We need to all reflect a bit more on the safety and practicality of merging cohorts at this time. Like was mentioned earlier, we are talking about 10 in-person days between Thanksgiving and winter break. We've heard from parents in the survey and students here tonight who are not comfortable with combining at this time. It's better to err on the side of caution. We can all agree that in-person learning is the best possible scenario for all children, but only when it's safe. I think it was said perfectly in a statement released by NJEA today. Our members want nothing more than a return to normalcy, but this is not a normal environment. It's a global pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, this is Evie Wenting, 7 Seminole, Wayne. I just wanted to call and say I'm really in support of combining the cohorts. You guys mentioned, specifically the cohort C who is not going to go to school for 9 weeks. I have a kid in cohort C, and that didn't make me happy at all because he's not really learning. I mean, he's learning, but not really. They need the socializations, and I understand that there is risk, but there is risk everywhere. If you sit down in your car, there is a risk you may get into an accident. Wherever you go, there's a risk you may trip and fall. So we kind of have to be cautious, but keep going because we can't just stop and sit in our own little bubbles. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, can I get a move to close public portion?
I'll move it.
Mr. Giordano, Mr. Pavlik. Okay. At this time, I'm going to have committee reports. Who would like to go first?
I can go, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beva.
Okay, tonight the Facilities Committee met with the administrators, Mr. Moffett, Mr. Blanchard, Mr. Skibitsky, and board members in attendance were myself and Mrs. Kazan. We went over, for facilities, we went over the agenda items that are on for tonight, which would be the comprehensive maintenance plan. We also discussed the use of facilities update. We did have conversations with the PAL and the Boys and Girls Clubs. Both are still deciding whether they're going to even have a winter program, so we're not taking any having anybody in the buildings right now. They don't even know if they're going to even ask to use the buildings at this point in time. We also talked about the Early Childhood Center plaque for Mrs. Karansky, and that's been ordered and should be in any day. We discussed the Alyssa's Law grant that we were given, and the state has allocated $438,000 for vestibules for the schools that don't have them yet, and the project will actually cost $453,000 in total. So we actually did really good getting that much money from the state. So we're just waiting to hear when that's going to happen. We also discussed fire system upgrades with the new fire official came in, and we're going to be doing some upgrades over the next 3 to 5 years that are going to total about $571,000, but we do have 3 to 5 years to put that together. We also discussed kindergarten rooms for the budget for next year, for the upgrades for them for the full day program that will be in place this year. We also discussed the backup generators that need to be replaced or added. And then the school level projects are being put together by the schools. And once that list is submitted to the business department, it will actually be pared down. We also discussed department vehicles that we need. We need a couple of vans that need to be replaced, and we need some equipment that needs to be replaced, a tractor that we cannot replace a motor on. So we're sharing one between the two high schools, and baseball field drags. We are down to 2 and one's on its last leg. So we're going to end up having to replace one. Otherwise, we're going to be going back and forth to the schools. For transportation, we discussed the agenda items that were on for tonight, which was the bus evacuation drills, which were complete. We did very well with, and the transportation agreements with the that are in place for this particular agenda. We also talked about the department operations update that is going to be ongoing, and we're going to be doing some research into getting to reorganizing to make the department run better. The TransFinder program has been being moved to the cloud, should be done next couple of days. The Aid in Lieu is being analyzed right now for the students who are all virtual. So before we start sending out money, we want to make sure that we're actually busing students. Bus maintenance and training, we are going to be looking into that to make sure that we put a training in place for the future, so that this way we're not missing anything and we stay on top of things. We also discussed the 2021-22 budget. We need to replace in the next couple of years 2 buses and 6 vans. So that's going to be coming up. And the other thing was the out-of-district routes are costing a lot more money than they used to, and that's because of COVID, because of extra cleaning, extra time, staff-wise, and so the bill for that is starting to add up. And that is my report.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Bubba. Who else had a committee this evening? Mrs. Scher? Who are you pointing at, Mr. Giordano?
Personnel met tonight with myself, Mr. Pavlak, Ms. Kumar, and Ms. Clark. We reviewed the minutes from last meeting. We reviewed the HR items on the agenda. We discussed the stipend for an employee, which we'll be getting more information on. And we discussed unionization of the dispatchers. And that was all I could share.
Thank you. I think that's it for committees. Let's move on to the agenda. Can I get a mover? Mr. Giordano? Mrs. Albanese? Are you looking to move the entire agenda, Mr. Giordano? Okay. I think we need a secondary motion to revise item K1 to the newly recommended Phase 2 plan. Mr. Duffy and Mr. Giordano. So we'll vote.
Madam President?
Yes.
Can I make a recommendation to the mover in a second? Can we move the whole agenda and just pull item K and vote on that separately?
Why are we pulling it? We're making a secondary motion to change it. We can still discuss it.
Pull it off consent. Vote on the rest of the agenda and then vote on that as well.
Well, we already have a secondary motion on the floor to revise it. So why don't we do that and finish up what we started? So first we'll vote on the secondary motion to amend K1 to this evening's recommendation from administration.
Okay, on the as amended portion by administration, I'll be calling the roll.
Thank you.
Mrs. Albany?
Just to clarify, we're voting to amend the motion. We're not voting voting on the motion, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
That's all.
Mr. Bubba?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Mrs. Kumar?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't hear him. Sorry.
Mr. Pavlik?
Yes.
Mrs. Cutter?
Yes.
Mrs. Shear?
Just to amend it, yes.
And Mrs. Fernandez?
Yes. Okay, back to the main
Mary?
motion. Thank you. Back to the main motion, which is to move the entire agenda. First of all, do we have any discussion? Once again, on any of the agenda items? No? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Scher. You go ahead.
I know that we just amended to move that forward, but is it possible that we vote on the cohorts separately? Is that an option or?
No, it's one item. Anyone else? Okay, so the phase 2 is K1, and I'm going to do the roll call on the full agenda.
The full agenda as amended.
Correct.
Mrs. Albanese?
Yes.
Mr. Bubba?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Pavlik?
Yes.
Mrs. Cutter?
Yes.
Mrs. Shear?
I'm going to say yes to the agenda, except for K1.
No, K1.
And my reasoning for that is because you won't remove the cohorts. And just to clarify, in the writing, it says cohorts. It says the New Jersey Department of Health is not recommending not to combine cohorts. They're recommending not to combine cohorts if you cannot social distance, which we can. So I just wanted to let you know that, Ms. Kumar. Thank you.
And Mrs. Kazan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. On to public portion number 2. This portion of the meeting is open to citizens for comment on any topic. Residents are to state their names, addresses, and subject matter. Comments may be limited to 5 minutes per person. Members of the public are discouraged from speaking negatively about an employee or a student. The board bears no responsibility for comments made by the public. Comments regarding employees or students cannot be legally responded to by the board. Other comments may be responded to tonight or at subsequent meetings under old business. Can I get a mover? Mr. Giordano, Mr. Pavlik. Okay. First caller.
Hi, Alan Tempescu, 41 Gibbs Drive. With all the discussion of cohorts, remote learning, and in-person learning, I would like to clarify how it would work as it relates to the fact that we're approaching the winter season. Dr. Toback, if the school district would declare a snow day, would all students be allowed to attend school on snow days remotely? And would such a day be allowed by the New Jersey Department of Education to be counted toward the 180-day requirement? Thank you.
Well, seeing no one else. Can I get a mover to close? Mr. Pavlik? Mrs. Albanese? Okay. Dr. Toback, care to address some of the comments or questions?
Okay. Let's start with David Ginsburg. So he had a question, he had a few questions, but the one question was, why after Thanksgiving do we only have 1 week that is set for remote instruction? Okay, so that's a good question. There's a few things we considered. One, of course, is that we don't expect as much travel as maybe we would during the holiday season. It's hard to say, but it does give us a week buffer. And the other part is that most people, if they're going to be home, they're going to be home on Wednesday or Thursday. And so that does give us a significant buffer. In the end, you have about 10 or 11 days between when people arrive home and when school would start again. So there is a significant buffer there. And like I said, we have that week to assess. If we find out during that week that there is a number of students or staff members or whatever we find out during that week, then there's certainly the opportunity, if you had to go virtual in the second week, you would have the ability to do that. But that week gives us time to assess conditions around the district post-holiday and make determinations about what is the best course of action. The other question was, well, what happens if we go virtual? What's needed to go virtual? And so the district has been working on that really as time goes by, and even these virtual Wednesdays, Wellness Wednesdays, are in many cases ways for the district to be prepared for a fully virtual environment. So the fact is now we have our technology situation, and for the most part that is solved. We did have some problems earlier this year with technology. Now we're in very good shape as far as our technology goes. So that is the foundation, that's it. The Google Classroom, staff members are accustomed to teaching more so. There was professional development. One of the things we might do, depending on the extent of if there was, for example, a closure and a requirement to go virtual, and we expect that to last for a period of time, we might go with an emergency day to allow for professional development. There might be some things that we would need to do, but in general, we're ready. We've been planning. We're prepared to go virtual if we need to, and we could really do it overnight if we had to. Then there was a question. Well, it was really a comment from Audrey Patterson. So the question, well, she did wonder about, could we as a district provide testing for employees so that we might be able to get faster test results? I know that most testing centers are now, they're flooded because there's so much activity out there with COVID and so many people being tested that it is tough to get an appointment. However, we can certainly look into that. I know we've talked to previously our school physician about that possibility of somehow, if we could get that through our school physician. Their office does not provide that service. And we also know the township was providing the testing, but I think that has come to an end. So that might continue in some way or another, but testing is a problem. We recognize that, and certainly the faster the testing, the better we would be. Although we would be hesitant to give rapid testing, only because we know that a lot of times it's really not the most accurate of tests. And we do find that on a regular basis, many people that go for a rapid test wind up in a situation where they are, where we wind up with a false positive or false negative. Excuse me one second. Okay. The comment from Eileen D'Amico, I'd like to talk about is basically the three cohorts. And with her comments, it's important to understand that when you look around Passaic County and you look around our immediate area, you notice that Wayne Hills and Wayne Valley are among the larger high schools that you will see. And so there are many other high schools that have two cohorts, and that two cohorts is for a total high school population of about 700 to 800 students. Right? That's your typical sized high school. We have high schools of 1,200 to 1,300. We have much larger high schools. So we felt that at the beginning of the year, when you take a group of that size and divide it into two cohorts, and you add in the teachers, and you're talking about 700 and all the other employees, 750 people in a building every day. So we reduced those numbers. So really the cohort size that we have at both of our high schools is probably about the same as other cohorts at smaller high schools when you only have two cohorts. So that's why. So there is a little bit of a difference with the high schools because, like I said, they are very large high schools compared to what you see in the other communities in our surrounding towns and things like that. So that's why the high schools in Wayne are on a three cohort model. The other thing about the three cohort model and why it's used in a lot of larger high schools is because ultimately it provides a built-in 2-week buffer. So if one cohort does wind up in a situation where the whole cohort has to quarantine, you have a 2-week period before they come back. So sometimes that can be very helpful, and it has proven to be helpful in a number of situations. With Mrs. Franklin, and she called in. So all I have here is a comment about the numbers that we have, and I don't see a question there, so I'll move on. Evita Wentnick commented about the need to combine the cohorts, and Mr. Tempescu asked a question about how it worked for a snow day. So virtual, so yes, students, as of, we just found this out, so this is a recent development, students can attend remotely, and the day that they attend remotely would count towards the 180-day requirement, okay? But that is assuming the only fine point to be discussed there is the fact that you cannot have a community that has a widespread power outage or a loss of Wi-Fi. So the fact is that as long as the power is in place and you have a snow day or something like that, then that day can count towards the 180-day requirement. Okay? I think that answers all the questions.
Okay. Was that it? Okay, it seems I overlooked the retirements. I'm sorry, I got distracted with all the first, second, and third motions. So if we could go ahead and proceed with those. Mr. Pavlak, you want to go first?
I would gladly. Barbara Rapkow. Barbara Rapkow has served our district since 1989, supervising students for lunch and recess periods through 3 decades. We sincerely appreciate her patience and kindness in working with the children of Wayne. She has spent countless hours serving the district, and we wish her all the best in her retirement.
Mrs. Scher?
I have Ellie Coles. It is a pleasure to be able to write this on behalf of Miss Ellen Coles. I'm not sure who wrote it. Who for the past 13 years has served as the guidance and main office secretary for the George Washington Middle School. For those that have had the opportunity to work with her, they know her as Ellie. There is no question, Ellie knows our school and main office inside and out. She could truly tell you what is in every closet or drawer before it was opened. This organization and structure identified all that she did at our school. Whether it was running the daily operations in the main office or keeping the books for our Washington, D.C. trip, everything had its place and a purpose for being there. In all the effort she put into ensuring our main office and school ran well, Ellie also put forth a level of caring and support to her friends and colleagues. While yes, we will miss how effective she was as a secretary, there is no replacing the friend she has been to all of us. Her caring for our school and each person in it helped to create such a positive environment wherever she was. Actually, when you think about it, we would not expect anything less from a person that spends as much time at Disney World as she does. Who knows, maybe Ellie is the reason Disney is the happiest place on earth. As Ellie moves on to the next chapter of her life and no longer has to split her time between her family at GW and the one at home, we wish her all the luck and success, and we thank her for all she has done for GW. We will miss you, Ellie. Congratulations to you.
Mr. Giordano?
Thank you. I have Charlene Visaggio. Ms. Charlene Visaggio has been a secretary at the Wayne Township Public Schools for the past 24 years. Well liked by the staff, parents, and many of the students who have had the pleasure to know and work with her. She is known for helping others in all situations and doing it with warmth, compassion, and diligence. Her dedication to our community is evident in her work, helpfulness, and compassion. Ms. Visaggio has been a ray of sunshine and a welcoming face as she greets staff and students at Wayne Valley every morning. She is well known as work mom to many of the administrators, staff, and teachers, as she is always concerned with the well-being of others and quick to lend a comforting word. It is simply in her nature to be kind and caring and to lend a hand when she can. To the students, she was seen as a person always willing to help and always having time to hear and act on their concerns. The administration, staff, and students will miss Charlene and her tremendous contributions to our school. We wish her happiness, luck, and success in the next chapter of her life.
Thank you. You're next, Mrs. Albanese.
Maria Casala. Mrs. Casala is a consummate and caring educator. She has taught Italian at Wayne Valley High School and George Washington Middle School. During her time at Wayne Valley, Mrs. Casala has taught all levels of the Italian language, from Italian 1 to Italian 5 honors. Her passion in teaching the Italian language and culture is infectious, which has helped her students to appreciate the importance of learning a foreign language in today's global world. Maria is an educator who is constantly evolving and creating, learning new methods, and bringing a fresh enthusiasm to her approach to teaching. Her decades of service has contributed to the success of countless young people she has been charged to instruct and encourage. Maria is a role model and mentor to many of her colleagues. Her collaborative nature demonstrates her unselfish approach to education, always with the best interest of her students and the World Language Department in mind. She is well liked and respected by her colleagues, administrators, students, and parents. She has never missed an opportunity to help someone or let someone know how much they are appreciated. Maria, we will miss you tremendously, and we wish you many years of happiness and relaxation as you transition into this new chapter of your life. Congratulations on your retirement.
Okay. Old business? New business? Mrs. Albanese?
I did just want to revisit a suggestion that was made by one of the people who called in tonight. Mrs. Patterson, first of all, we're all very happy that you're fine and that there were no repercussions to an exposure. But it does raise a good point about teachers who are doing the right thing, following the rules, and yet having difficulty in trying to get some type of a test to ensure themselves that they haven't been exposed or are exposing others. So I think it would be in our best interest, as well as our staff and our administrators who do come to school every day, if there was a way that we could set up some type of priority testing for employees, whether that means setting up something with so a local urgent care or something like that, or even maybe working with the Wayne Health Department to bring someone in so that staff members would have access to testing when it's needed. We've talked about having absences. We've talked about the need for subs and the lack of subs at certain times. Often this may be as a result of teachers trying to get testing or staff members or administrators trying to get testing and not being able to. So I do think it was a very good suggestion for us to look into something where we could provide testing opportunities for staff members when needed. So I think that would just be a good thing for us to look into and maybe put something routine in place, a place for where teachers could go to be tested when needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Albanese. I agree. I know that there's CARES Act money out there for this purpose, and I know that that's where the money came from to help with the township testing, and there's still money at the county level. So if we have exhausted the opportunity to do it locally, we could certainly reach out to the county and find out if there's some cooperative agreement we could work on with them. They have a rotating sites right now, but to get priority for our staff would be something we could certainly look into, considering they're essential workers. Anyone else? Board comments?
You have Ms. Kumar.
She stalled on my screen, sorry.
Sorry, it's okay.
Go ahead, Mrs. Kumar.
Hi, yeah, I definitely agree that we need to figure out the testing situation. Looking at the CARES Act is a great idea, but the other thing, as we talk about rapid tests, there are actually two different versions of rapid tests now. There's a rapid PCR test now that exists that actually my husband's practice is giving out. We can't use my husband's practice. He's in New York, so don't even. I'm not suggesting that we do that, okay? But I want to let you know that it does exist as an option as we're looking, hopefully, into possibly accessing this for our teachers and other staff members. It actually is 20 minutes to 45 minutes in terms of the actual test run. So, and it's PCR. So just, I don't know if maybe Hackensack or somewhere like that might offer it, but I would look into that. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Pavlak?
To stick with the testing theme for a moment, maybe Dr. Tovak, we can get a hold of Dr. Goldberg and see if we can work something out through St. Joe's, through his, in his office, for some kind of testing for our staff on a continuous basis. I mean, I'd like to even expand it to begin testing students as well. Give them the opportunity if they wish it.
We could certainly look at trying to really ramp up the testing opportunities available to Wayne students and to Wayne teachers. I mean, that would be, or all Wayne employees. That would be a very important thing. So I agree, and we'll start working on that tomorrow.
Thank you. That's an awesome idea. Okay, anyone else? No? All righty, well, then I'll conclude. I hope everyone has a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. While we may not all be gathering around our large tables like we're used to, we're doing it for all the right reasons. So, you know, please try to follow the guidelines and come back in good health when we see you again, when school reopens. And thank you as always to the Wayne Education Foundation and all the wonderful donors that keep our schools supplied with all the lovely little extras that we don't always have in our budget. Much appreciated. And that's it for our meeting tonight. Thank you and happy Thanksgiving to all of you as well. Move to close. Mr. Giordano, Mrs. Kumar. I just hate those motions.
Good night, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Good night.